The rain battered the roof of their modest home, its rhythmic drumming a somber background to an otherwise quiet evening. Inside, 17-year-old Jake and his 15-year-old sister, Lily, sat huddled on the sagging couch, the glow of their phones illuminating their faces in the dimly lit living room. It was a typical evening in their household, filled with the hum of an old heater and the occasional creak of the house settling under the weight of the storm. Another charity gala, Jake muttered as he scrolled through his feed, stopping briefly at a picture of elegantly dressed people posing under chandeliers. He was about to swipe past when something, or rather, someone, caught his eye. His hand froze mid-swipe. "Lily, come here," he whispered urgently, his voice tinged with disbelief. "What?" Lily grumbled, reluctantly scooting closer. "I'm in the middle of something." "Just look." Jake tilted his phone toward her. The image on the screen showed a tall man in a simple suit standing amidst a group of wealthy elites. His face was unmistakable. The caption read, "Philanthropist Sam Reeves, a major donor to the Youth Futures Initiative, celebrates another milestone at the annual gala." That can't be Dad," Lily stammered, squinting at the screen. "Why would he be at some fancy gala? We can barely afford groceries." Jake's heart pounded. The image didn't fit with the man they knew. Their father, Sam Reeves, who wore the same faded jeans for years, drove an old pickup that groaned with every turn, and insisted on hand-me-downs to save money. For as long as they could remember, their family had lived modestly, sometimes struggling to make ends meet. Yet here he was, standing shoulder to shoulder with billionaires. "Maybe it's a mistake," Jake suggested weakly, though even as he said it, he knew it wasn't. The man in the photo looked exactly like their father, right down to the slightly crooked smile and the glint of kindness in his eyes. Lily snatched the phone from Jake's hand and began scrolling through more photos from the event. There were more images, Sam shaking hands with corporate executives, giving a speech at the podium, and even standing beside a giant check for $2 million addressed to an education charity. "This doesn't make any sense," she whispered, her voice shaking. "How could he be this guy? A life of sacrifice." Their father, Sam, was in the kitchen, humming softly as he prepared tea. His hands moved deftly, slicing a lemon with precision born of years of habit. He didn't seem to notice the commotion in the living room until Lily stormed in, phone in hand, her face flushed with a mix of confusion and anger. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling, "what is this?" Sam looked up, startled by her tone. He wiped his hands on a towel and glanced at the phone she thrust toward him. His face, usually calm and composed, momentarily betrayed a flicker of surprise before settling into a resigned expression. "Where did you find that?" he asked quietly. "It's all over the internet," Jake interjected, joining them in the kitchen. "Why are you in these photos? Are you rich?" The question hung in the air, heavy with disbelief. Sam sighed deeply, setting the knife down and leaning against the counter. "I suppose it's time you both knew," he began, his voice tinged with sadness. "But I need you to listen carefully, because this isn't what it seems." The man behind the mask. Sam gestured for them to sit at the small kitchen table. Jake and Lily exchanged a wary glance before taking their seats, their phones still clutched tightly in their hands. "Before your mother passed away," Sam began, his voice soft but steady, "I wasn't the man you know now. I ran a successful tech company, a company that made me more money than I ever thought I'd see in a lifetime. Your mom and I lived in a big house, drove nice cars, traveled the world. We had everything we thought we wanted." Jake and Lily stared at him, their minds struggling to reconcile this image of their father with the man who clipped coupons and patched up their old clothes. "But when your mom got sick," Sam continued, his eyes clouding with emotion, "everything changed. All the money in the world couldn't save her. I sold the company, liquidated everything, and used every cent I had to try and find a cure, to make her last days comfortable. His voice cracked slightly, and he paused to collect himself. After she passed, I realized how empty all of it was. The big house, the cars, the vacations, they meant nothing without her. So I made a decision. I didn't want to live a life chasing wealth anymore. I wanted to do something meaningful, something she would have been proud of. A hidden life of generosity. I started giving it all away, Sam said simply, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Quietly, anonymously. I set up scholarships, built community centers, and funded programs for kids who didn't have the opportunities I did. That gala you saw, it's one of the few times I've ever been publicly recognized. Jake's head spun. But why didn't you tell us? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. Why make us live like this? We've been struggling while you're out there donating millions. Sam's gaze softened. I didn't want you to grow up thinking money was the answer to everything. I wanted you to understand the value of hard work, humility, and kindness. If you'd known about the money, would you have learned those lessons? Lily looked down at her lap, her anger dissipating into confusion. But we could have had a better life, she said quietly. We could have had more. You're right, Sam admitted. You could have had more things. But I wanted you to have something far more important, character. The kind of character that your mom believed in, the kind that makes the world better. The weight of a legacy. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the steady patter of rain against the windows. Jake and Lily didn't know what to say. They had grown up resenting their modest life, envying their peers who had more, never realizing the sacrifices their father had made, not just for them, but for countless others. Sam stood and walked to the counter, picking up a faded photograph in a simple wooden frame. He handed it to Jake. It was a picture of their mother, smiling radiantly as she held a young Jake and Lily in her arms. Everything I do is for her, Sam said softly. And for you. You may not understand now, but one day you'll see why I made these choices. Jake stared at the photo, his throat tightening. He wanted to be angry, to demand answers, but all he could feel was a deep, overwhelming sense of awe. His father wasn't just the man who fixed leaky pipes and made bad jokes at dinner. He was a hero in ways they had never imagined. An emotional turning point. That night, Jake and Lily stayed up late, scrolling through articles and interviews about their father. They read about the scholarships he had funded, the schools he had built, the lives he had changed. Each story painted a picture of a man who had given everything to make the world a better place, even if it meant keeping his own children in the dark. By the time they went to bed, their perspective on their father and their own lives had shifted. For the first time, they began to see the hidden wealth in their upbringing, the values of empathy, resilience, and selflessness that their father had quietly instilled in them. As Jake lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he thought about something his father had said earlier. Money isn't what makes a person rich, it's what they give to others. And for the first time in his life, Jake understood what that truly meant. The following morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and glistening under the soft morning light. But inside the Reeves household, the air was heavy with unanswered questions. Jake and Lily sat at the breakfast table, quietly picking at their cereal, their thoughts a chaotic swirl of disbelief, curiosity, and most of all, guilt. Sam moved around the kitchen as he always did, humming a soft tune while frying eggs. Yet there was a noticeable shift in the atmosphere, a quiet tension that neither parent nor child could ignore. Finally, Jake broke the silence. "Dad," he began, his voice hesitant, "can we see it?" Sam turned to face him, a puzzled expression on his face. "See what?" "The world you've been building," Lily interjected, her voice steadier than her brother's. "The scholarships, the centers, the people you've helped. We want to understand." Sam looked at his children, his usually warm eyes now tinged with surprise and pride. "Are you sure?" he asked. "It's not glamorous. It's real." Jake and Lily exchanged a glance. "We're sure," Jake said firmly. We want to know the truth. A journey into the unknown. The drive was quiet but not uncomfortable. Sam's old pickup truck rattled and groaned as it made its way out of their small suburban neighborhood and toward the city. Jake and Lily sat in the back seat, watching the familiar scenery blur into the unknown. Neither of them knew what to expect. Their first stop was a community center on the outskirts of the city. It was an unassuming brick building, its walls painted with colorful murals depicting children playing, reading, and laughing. As they pulled into the gravel parking lot, a group of kids ran past, their laughter filling the air. "This is one of the first projects your mom and I dreamed up," Sam said as he parked the truck. A safe space for kids to learn and grow, no matter their circumstances. He led them inside, where they were greeted by a warm, bustling environment. Volunteers sorted books in a small library, while a group of children sat cross-legged on a rug, listening intently to a story being read aloud. The air buzzed with energy and hope. A middle-aged woman approached them, her face lighting up when she saw Sam. "Sam, it's so good to see you," she exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. "And these must be your kids." "This is Jake and Lily," Sam introduced them. "I thought it was time they saw where all the late nights and long drives have been going." The woman, whose name was Claire, began showing them around. She explained how the center offered after-school programs, meals for underprivileged families, and even job training for parents. Every corner of the building seemed to hold a story of transformation. A child who learned to read, a teen who found mentorship, a family who regained stability. As they toured the center, Jake noticed a wall filled with photos. Each one featured a smiling child holding up a certificate, a book, or some other sign of achievement. At the top, bold letters spelled out, "Because someone believed in me." "That someone is your dad," Claire said softly, noticing Jake staring at the wall. "He's never wanted recognition, but this wouldn't exist without him." Jake felt a lump rise in his throat. He glanced at his father, who was kneeling beside a little boy, helping him tie his shoelaces. In that moment, Jake saw him not just as a dad, but as a quiet force for good, a man whose actions spoke louder than words ever could. The faces of change. Their next stop was a small school in a struggling neighborhood. As they entered the building, they were greeted by a principal who introduced herself as Ms. Alvarez. Her gratitude toward Sam was palpable. "Sam's scholarships have kept this place alive," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Without his help, we wouldn't have the resources to give these kids a fighting chance." She led them to a classroom where students were working on art projects. On each desk was a small plaque that read, "Funded by the Reeves Scholarship." Lily's eyes widened as she watched a girl her age carefully paint a vibrant sunset. She couldn't help but notice how focused and happy the students seemed, despite the obvious challenges they faced. One of the students, a boy named Marcus, came over to thank Sam personally. "Mr. Reeves, because of your scholarship, I'm going to be the first in my family to go to college," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Thank you for believing in me." Sam smiled warmly and shook the boy's hand. "You earned it, Marcus. Never forget that." As they left the school, Lily couldn't hold back her thoughts any longer. "Dad, how do you choose who to help? There are so many people in need." "It's not easy," Sam admitted. "But your mom always said, start with one. One person, one family, one community. You can't save the world, but you can make a world of difference for someone." Revelations and reflections. Their final stop of the day was a modest housing complex. Sam explained that it was built to provide affordable housing for families transitioning out of homelessness. They were greeted by a young mother named Angela, who invited them into her home with a warm smile. Angela's apartment was small but cozy, filled with signs of a life rebuilt. Children's drawings on the fridge, a well-worn couch, and a bookshelf overflowing with books. She told them how she had been on the streets with her 2 kids before finding a home in the complex. "Mr. Reeves gave us more than a roof over our heads," Angela said, her voice trembling. "He gave us hope. My kids are thriving now. My daughter wants to be a doctor because of the mentorship program he set up. Lily listened intently, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and humility. She had always seen their father as an ordinary man, but today she realized he was anything but. He was a man who turned his pain into purpose, who quietly changed lives without ever seeking credit. The weight of understanding. On the drive home, Jake and Lily were uncharacteristically quiet. The day's experiences had left them emotionally drained, but profoundly moved. They had seen the impact of their father's work firsthand. The joy, the hope, the transformation he had brought to so many lives. "Dad," Jake said finally, breaking the silence, "why didn't you tell us sooner? We could have helped." Sam glanced at his son through the rearview mirror, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and regret. "I didn't want you to feel burdened by my choices," he said. "This work isn't always easy. There's a lot of heartbreak, a lot of no's before you get to a yes. I wanted you to have a childhood, to grow up without carrying the weight of what I do. But we're not kids anymore," Lily said softly. "We want to be part of this. We want to help." Sam smiled, a flicker of hope crossing his face. "If you're ready, there's always more to do." A new chapter begins. By the time they reached home, the sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow over their small house. Jake and Lily felt a newfound appreciation for their modest home, understanding now that it was built on sacrifices made for a greater purpose. That night, they sat around the kitchen table, not as a family with secrets, but as a team with a shared mission. Sam began to share more about his work, the challenges, the victories, and the endless opportunities to make a difference. Jake suggested organizing a fundraiser at school, while Lily brainstormed ideas for a youth mentorship program. For the first time, they saw themselves not as passive observers of their father's legacy, but as active participants in carrying it forward. As they planned and dreamed together, Sam felt an overwhelming sense of pride. His children, once resentful of their modest life, were now inspired to be part of something bigger than themselves. It was a moment he would treasure forever, a moment that proved his sacrifices had not been in vain. And so, a new chapter began for the Reeves family, one filled with hope, purpose, and a shared commitment to changing the world, one life at a time. The following weeks were a whirlwind for the Reeves family. After their transformative day of witnessing their father's legacy, Jake and Lily couldn't stop talking about the people they had met and the lives their father had changed. It felt like a curtain had been pulled back, revealing a world they'd never known existed, a world their father had quietly shaped, from passive to active. Sitting at the dining table one evening, Jake tossed his notebook onto the surface, pages filled with scribbled ideas. "Okay, I've been thinking about this fundraiser," he began. "What if we do more than just raise money? What if we actually bring people together, like a festival or something? Music, food, games, all of it goes toward the scholarships." Lily leaned in, her excitement contagious. "And we could invite the kids from the community center. They could showcase their talents, art, music, dance. It would give them a platform and show people exactly what they're supporting." Sam, sitting across from them with a cup of tea, watched quietly. He had never imagined his children would take to this work so quickly, so passionately. "I think it's a wonderful idea," he said, his voice filled with pride. "But it's going to take a lot of effort. Are you ready for that?" Jake and Lily exchanged determined glances. "We're ready," they said in unison. The first steps. The siblings dove headfirst into planning the event. They reached out to teachers, local businesses, and their friends at school, pitching the idea with enthusiasm that was hard to resist. Their father stepped back, letting them take the lead while offering guidance when needed. The planning process wasn't without its challenges. Jake struggled to balance his newfound responsibilities with his schoolwork, often staying up late into the night sending emails and drafting plans. Lily, on the other hand, found herself frustrated by the skepticism of some classmates who doubted they could pull off such a big event. "Why are you even doing this?" one classmate had asked during lunch. It's not like it'll make a difference. Lily had stared at her, a fierce determination burning in her eyes. Because it does make a difference, she replied. And maybe if you came, you'd see that. A spark of inspiration. One afternoon, while brainstorming at the kitchen table, Lily asked, "Dad, what's one story that's always stuck with you? Someone you've helped who really inspired you?" Sam leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "There's a young woman named Rosa," he began. "She grew up in a rough neighborhood, no family support, barely scraping by. She came to the community center one day, shy and withdrawn, but determined to learn. She used the resources we offered to finish school, got a scholarship, and now she's a teacher at that same center, helping kids who are just like she was. Can we invite her to speak at the event?" Jake asked, his voice filled with excitement. "People need to hear stories like that." Sam smiled. "I think Rosa would love that." The day of the event. Weeks of planning culminated in a sunny Saturday afternoon. The fundraiser took place at a local park, which buzzed with activity as families, students, and community members gathered. Colorful banners hung from trees, food stalls filled the air with the aroma of freshly grilled burgers and sweet funnel cakes, and a small stage stood at the center, ready for performances. Jake and Lily moved through the crowd, greeting guests, and making sure everything ran smoothly. Jake had enlisted the help of a local band to play upbeat tunes, while Lily had organized an art exhibit featuring work from the kids at the community center. "Lily, look," Jake called, pointing to a long line forming at one of the booths. It was a raffle they'd set up, offering prizes donated by local businesses. "It's working." Lily grinned. "Of course it is. We put everything into this." As the day went on, performances from the kids brought the crowd to their feet. A young boy recited a powerful spoken-word poem about overcoming obstacles, while a group of girls performed a vibrant dance routine that earned thunderous applause. The speech that changed everything. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, it was time for Rosa to speak. She stepped onto the stage, her presence commanding yet humble. The crowd fell silent as she began. "I used to think my life was destined to be small," she said, her voice steady. "I grew up in a world that told me I didn't matter, that I'd never amount to anything. But someone saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Someone gave me the tools to build a future I didn't think was possible." She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. That someone was Sam Reeves, and because of him, I'm standing here today, not as a victim of my circumstances, but as a teacher, a mentor, and a believer in the power of kindness. Jake and Lily watched from the side of the stage, their hearts swelling with pride. For the first time, they'd fully grasped the depth of their father's impact. Unexpected connections. As the event wound down, Sam was approached by a man in his early 30s. He looked familiar, but Sam couldn't quite place him. "Mr. Reeves," the man said, his voice hesitant. "Yes, that's me," Sam replied. "I'm Kevin," the man said, extending his hand. "You probably don't remember me, but I was one of the kids at your very first community center. You paid for my school supplies when I couldn't afford them. That act of kindness, it changed my life. I'm a social worker now, helping kids the way you helped me." Sam's face lit up with recognition, and he pulled Kevin into a heartfelt embrace. "It's good to see you, Kevin," he said warmly. "I'm so proud of you." Jake and Lily watched the exchange from a distance, their respect for their father growing even deeper. They realized that his work wasn't just about big gestures. It was about the small, meaningful acts that created ripples, changing one life at a time. Reflection and growth. That evening, as the family packed up the event, Jake and Lily couldn't stop talking about everything they'd experienced. "Dad, I can't believe how many lives you've touched," Lily said, her voice filled with awe. "It's like every person we met today had a story about you." "It's not about me," Sam replied, his tone humble. "It's about them, their strength, their determination. I just gave them the opportunity." They did the rest. Jake nodded thoughtfully. Still, you showed us today that even small actions can have a huge impact. I want to do more, Dad. I don't want this to be just a one-time thing. Sam placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his eyes filled with pride. You've already started, Jake, and that's more than I could have hoped for. The ripple effect. In the weeks that followed, the fundraiser's success continued to ripple through the community. The money raised funded new programs at the community center, provided additional scholarships, and even helped expand the housing complex they had visited. Jake and Lily stayed deeply involved, balancing school with their newfound passion for giving back. For Sam, watching his children step into this new role was the greatest reward. They had not only embraced his legacy but had also begun to carve their own path, bringing fresh ideas and youthful energy to the mission. As they sat together one evening, reviewing plans for their next project, Sam couldn't help but smile. He thought back to the decision he had made all those years ago, to leave behind a life of wealth and dedicate himself to a higher purpose. It had been a difficult choice, but in that moment, surrounded by his children's enthusiasm and determination, he knew it had been the right one. Because in the end, the greatest legacy wasn't the money he had given or the buildings he had funded. It was the values he had passed on to his children. The belief that one act of kindness could create ripples that changed the world. And as the Reeves family continued their journey, those ripples grew into waves, touching countless lives and proving that even the smallest actions could lead to something extraordinary. The success of the fundraiser had ignited a fire within Jake and Lily. They weren't content to let the momentum die down. Together, they decided to take on more responsibility in their father's philanthropic endeavors. They wanted to make an even bigger difference, to carry forward the values their father had instilled in them. But as they soon discovered, good intentions often come with unforeseen challenges. Ambition meets reality. It began with a meeting at the community center. Jake and Lily had gathered with the staff and volunteers to brainstorm new ways to expand their programs. Ideas flew across the room: more scholarships, a mentorship program, career training workshops. But the question of resources loomed over every suggestion. "We'd love to do all of this," Claire, the center's director, said, her voice tinged with both hope and caution. "But we're already stretched thin. Adding more programs means we'll need more funding, more volunteers, and more space." Jake, who had always been an idealist, leaned forward in his seat. "What if we start small? Focus on just one program and grow it from there." Lily nodded in agreement, "And we can help with the funding. We've got contacts from the fundraiser, local businesses, schools, even some parents who were really supportive. If we reach out, I'm sure we can bring in more resources." Claire smiled, clearly impressed by their determination. "It won't be easy," she said, "but if anyone can do it, it's you too." Navigating skepticism. Energized by their meeting, Jake and Lily got to work. Jake focused on drafting proposals and meeting with potential donors, while Lily coordinated with the community center staff to develop the mentorship program. Their vision was to pair at-risk youth with professionals in various fields, providing guidance and opportunities that could set them on a path to success. However, not everyone was as enthusiastic about their plans. During a meeting with the school board to discuss collaborating on the program, they encountered resistance. "I admire your ambition," one board member said, his tone measured, "but these kinds of programs often fail because they're too idealistic. Mentorship requires long-term commitment, and many volunteers drop out after a few months. Have you considered how you'll maintain this?" Jake felt his confidence waver but quickly recovered. "We've thought about that," he replied. "That's why we're focusing on building strong relationships with community organizations and vetting volunteers carefully. We want this to be sustainable." Another board member leaned back in her chair, her expression skeptical. "Even with careful planning, you're asking a lot. People are busy, and mentorship takes time. What makes you think this will work?" Lily jumped in, her voice steady. "Because we've seen what happens when someone invests in these kids. It's not just about changing their lives. It's about changing their families, their communities. We've seen it with our dad's work, and we know it can happen here. The room fell silent for a moment before the board chair spoke. All right, we'll give you 6 months to pilot the program. Show us results, and we'll talk about expanding it. Building bridges. With the school board's reluctant approval, Jake and Lily threw themselves into the pilot program. They reached out to local professionals, including doctors, engineers, artists, and small business owners, inviting them to volunteer as mentors. Many were enthusiastic, but others were hesitant, questioning whether their time would truly make a difference. One conversation in particular stuck with Jake. He had approached a successful entrepreneur, Mr. Harris, who had grown up in the same struggling neighborhood the program aimed to serve. "I understand what you're trying to do," Mr. Harris said, his tone serious. "But I've seen programs like this come and go. What makes you think this one will last?" Jake hesitated before answering. "Because we're not just trying to fix a problem. We're trying to build relationships. We're not asking for handouts or quick fixes. We're asking for people to believe in these kids, the way someone believed in you." Mr. Harris studied him for a moment before nodding. "All right, kid. I'll give it a shot, but I'm holding you to your word." Unexpected roadblocks. As the program launched, Jake and Lily faced challenges they hadn't anticipated. Coordinating schedules between mentors and mentees proved to be a logistical nightmare, and some of the kids were reluctant to open up, unsure if the mentors would stick around. One mentee, a 14-year-old named Deshaun, stood out for his resistance. He had been assigned to Mr. Harris, but every meeting seemed to end in frustration. Deshaun would barely speak, shrugging off questions and avoiding eye contact. "I don't think this is working," Mr. Harris told Jake after one particularly difficult session. "The kid doesn't want to talk. I don't know if I'm the right person for this." Jake felt a pang of disappointment but refused to give up. "Give it time," he said. "Deshaun's been let down a lot in his life. He just needs to see that you're not going to give up on him." Jake's words stuck with Mr. Harris, and he decided to try a different approach. Instead of focusing on structured conversations, he invited Deshaun to shadow him at his business, a small auto repair shop. Slowly but surely, Deshaun began to open up, asking questions about cars and even cracking a few jokes. It was a small breakthrough, but a significant one. The toll of leadership. While Jake and Lily worked tirelessly on the program, the strain began to show. Late nights and constant meetings left them exhausted, and the pressure to prove the program's success weighed heavily on them. One evening, Lily burst into tears at the dinner table. "What if we fail, Dad?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if all this work is for nothing?" Sam reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on hers. "You're not going to fail," he said gently. "Even if things don't go as planned, you've already made a difference. You've shown these kids, and this community, that someone cares. That matters more than you realize." Jake, who had been silently brooding, finally spoke up. "I just feel like we're in over our heads. This is so much bigger than we thought." Sam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Making the difference isn't easy. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes overwhelming. But the fact that you're trying, that you're willing to put in the work, means you're already succeeding." A glimmer of hope. As the 6-month mark approached, the program began to show tangible results. Mentees like Deshaun were thriving, building confidence and discovering new interests. Mentors who had been hesitant at first were now fully invested, sharing stories of their own growth and fulfillment. One mentor, a local artist, spoke at a community meeting about her experience. "I started this program thinking I'd be helping someone else," she said. "But the truth is, my mentee has helped me just as much. She's reminded me why I fell in love with art in the first place." The school board, initially skeptical, was impressed by the progress reports and testimonials. "You've exceeded our expectations," the chairperson admitted during a follow-up meeting. "We're willing to support the program's expansion." The ripple effect grows. The success of the mentorship program sparked a ripple effect throughout the community. Other organizations reached out, offering to collaborate on future projects. Families who had benefited from Sam's earlier work began volunteering, eager to give back. For Jake and Lily, the experience was transformative. They had started this journey with the hope of making a difference, but they had gained far more than they'd given. They had learned resilience, empathy, and the power of persistence, reflection, and growth. One evening, as the family sat together in their cozy living room, Sam looked at his children with pride. "You've done something incredible," he said. "You've taken the values your mom and I believed in and made them your own. That's the greatest legacy anyone could hope for." Jake and Lily exchanged a smile, their hearts swelling with gratitude. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face it, together, as a family, and as part of a community united by hope and kindness. Their journey was far from over, but they had already proven one thing. Even the smallest acts of kindness could spark a revolution of change, touching countless lives in ways they'd never imagined. And in the end, that was the true measure of success. Months had passed since Jake and Lily launched their mentorship program, and the Reeves family's commitment to giving back had only grown stronger. The once small ripple of change was now transforming into waves, reaching further than they ever imagined. But with greater reach came new challenges, opportunities, and moments of profound self-reflection. A family meeting. One crisp autumn evening, Sam gathered Jake and Lily around the kitchen table. The table, once filled with quiet family dinners, had become the central hub for their planning and brainstorming sessions. "I think it's time we talk about the future," Sam began, his voice calm yet serious. "You two have done an incredible job with the mentorship program, and it's grown beyond anything I could have imagined. But we need to start thinking about sustainability." "Sustainability?" Lily asked, furrowing her brow. Sam nodded. "Yes, if something happened to me, I want to make sure this work continues. We need a structure in place that allows the programs we've built to thrive, even without us directly overseeing them." Jake leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What are you thinking?" Sam spread out a stack of papers on the table. "I've been talking to some advisors about setting up a formal foundation. It would provide a clear framework for everything we're doing: fundraising, program management, outreach. But it's a big step, and I want this to be a family decision, a vote for the future." The idea of a foundation both excited and intimidated Jake and Lily. It felt like a natural evolution of their work, but it also meant stepping into a level of responsibility they hadn't fully considered. "We're in," Lily said after a moment of silence, her voice steady with determination. "This isn't just your legacy, Dad. It's ours too." Jake nodded in agreement. "Yeah, let's do it." Sam smiled, a mix of pride and relief washing over him. "All right then, let's build something that lasts." Building the foundation. Creating the Reeves Family Foundation was no small task. They needed to establish legal structures, recruit board members, and develop a comprehensive plan for their initiatives. The family divided responsibilities. Sam handled legal and financial logistics, Jake focused on marketing and outreach, and Lily took charge of program development. One of their first challenges was finding board members who shared their vision. They reached out to trusted allies like Claire from the community center and Mr. Harris, who had become a mentor not only to Deshawn but to the entire team. Both eagerly accepted the invitation to join. As the foundation began to take shape, Jake and Lily realized just how much their father had carried on his own over the years. The scale of his work was staggering, and they felt an even deeper appreciation for his dedication. "Dad, how did you do all of this by yourself?" Jake asked one evening as they worked on the foundation's mission statement. Sam chuckled softly, "One step at a time, and with a lot of help from people who believed in the mission." New challenges. With the foundation officially launched, the Reeves family faced a new set of challenges, scaling their programs to reach more people while maintaining the personal touch that had made their work so impactful. The mentorship program, now expanded to several schools, required more mentors, resources, and coordination than ever before. One particularly difficult moment came when a promising mentor dropped out unexpectedly, citing burnout. This left several mentees, including Deshawn, without a guide. Lily took it personally, feeling as though she had let the kids down. "I should have seen this coming," she said, tears welling up in her eyes as she sat in the kitchen late one night. "I should have done more to support him." Sam sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Lily, you can't carry the weight of everything on your shoulders. Burnout happens, even to the best of us. What matters is how we respond and adapt." Lily wiped her eyes and nodded. "You're right. I'll figure this out." The next day, she worked with Claire to create a support system for mentors, including regular check-ins, training sessions, and a peer network to share experiences and advice. It was a small but significant change that made a big difference. A new generation of leaders. As the foundation grew, so did its impact. The mentorship program began producing tangible results. Mentees graduating high school, earning scholarships, and even returning as mentors themselves. Deshawn, once shy and withdrawn, was now a confident young man with dreams of becoming an engineer. He often spoke at events, sharing his journey and inspiring others to get involved. One evening, Deshawn approached Jake after an event. "I want to thank you," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "Not just for the program, but for believing in me. You didn't give up, even when I wasn't sure I could do this." Jake felt a lump in his throat. "You did the hard work, Deshawn. We just gave you a little push." "No," Deshawn insisted. "You gave me hope, and now I want to do the same for someone else." It was moments like these that reminded Jake and Lily why they had committed to this path. The work was exhausting and often overwhelming, but the rewards were immeasurable. Expanding horizons. With the foundation's success, the Reeves family began exploring new initiatives. They partnered with local businesses to create internships for underprivileged youth, launched a literacy program at the community center, and even started a scholarship fund for single parents pursuing higher education. One particularly ambitious project was the creation of a mobile resource unit, a van equipped with books, laptops, and supplies that could travel to underserved areas. The idea was Lily's, inspired by her belief that access to resources should never be limited by geography. When the first mobile unit rolled into a struggling neighborhood, it was met with overwhelming enthusiasm. Kids flocked to the van, their faces lighting up as they explored its offerings. Parents expressed gratitude, many wiping away tears as they spoke about the difference it would make for their families. Reflection and renewal. As the foundation celebrated its first anniversary, the Reeves family hosted a gathering at the community center. The event was a celebration of everything they had accomplished and a chance to reflect on the journey that had brought them there. Sam took the stage, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This work began as a way to honor my wife's memory," he said, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "But it has become so much more. It's a testament to what we can achieve when we come together, when we believe in each other, and when we refuse to let challenges stop us." Jake and Lily stood beside him, their hearts swelling with pride. They had come so far, not just as individuals, but as a family united by a shared purpose, a legacy fulfilled. In the quiet moments after the event, the family sat together on a bench outside the community center, watching the stars. The air was crisp, and the faint sounds of laughter and music drifted from the building behind them. "I can't believe how much has changed," Lily said, her voice tinged with wonder. "A year ago, we didn't even know about all this." Jake nodded. "And now it feels like we've always been a part of it." Sam smiled, his heart full. "You've both made me so proud. This foundation isn't just about the work we've done. It's about the lives we've touched and the lives we'll continue to touch." As they sat together, the weight of the journey they had undertaken settled into their hearts. It wasn't an easy path, but it was one worth walking. The Reeves family had built more than a foundation. They had built a legacy of hope, kindness, and resilience, one that would continue to grow, creating ripples that would touch lives for generations to come. The Reeves Family Foundation had grown beyond anything Jake, Lily, or even Sam could have imagined. The programs they had created were thriving, and the impact of their work was spreading like wildfire. Yet, as the family navigated their newfound roles as leaders of a growing organization, they found themselves facing new questions. What did it truly mean to leave a legacy? And how could they ensure their mission would last for generations? An unexpected visitor. One chilly afternoon, as Sam reviewed grant applications in his home office, the doorbell rang. Jake, now in the habit of coordinating the foundation's outreach efforts from the dining room table, answered the door. Standing there was a woman in her late 40s, her face familiar but older than Jake remembered. She held a worn envelope in her hands. "Jake Reeves?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "Yes, that's me," Jake replied. "Can I help you?" "I'm here because of your father," she said, offering a small, tentative smile. "He helped me a long time ago, and I think it's time I paid it forward." She introduced herself as Maria, a woman Sam had quietly supported during the early days of his philanthropy. She explained how his kindness had allowed her to escape an abusive marriage, rebuild her life, and eventually become the owner of a successful catering business. "I've been following the foundation's work," Maria said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'd like to partner with you. I want to provide jobs and training for women in similar situations." Jake was speechless. He invited her inside, and they spent hours discussing how her business could collaborate with the foundation. By the time she left, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. The seeds his father had planted so many years ago were now bearing fruit in ways none of them could have foreseen. Passing the torch. The foundation's success had also attracted the attention of other philanthropic organizations. One day, Sam received an invitation to speak at a national conference on community leadership. The thought of standing in front of a crowd made him uneasy. He had always preferred working quietly, away from the spotlight, but Jake and Lily insisted he accept. "This isn't just about you, Dad," Lily said, her voice filled with conviction. "It's about inspiring others to do the same. Think of how many lives you could impact by sharing your story." Reluctantly, Sam agreed. As the day of the conference approached, he worked with Jake and Lily to prepare his speech. They helped him craft a narrative that was both deeply personal and universally inspiring, focusing on the transformative power of kindness. When the day finally arrived, Sam stood on stage, his heart pounding as he faced a sea of expectant faces. He took a deep breath and began. "I never set out to change the world," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I just wanted to honor my wife's memory and give back to a community that had given me so much. What I've learned along the way is that even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples that grow into waves." By the time he finished, the audience was on its feet, applauding not just his words but the impact of his work. For Sam, it was a humbling experience, but for Jake and Lily, it was a moment of immense pride. Their father's humility and dedication had inspired countless others to follow in his footsteps. Challenges of expansion. As the foundation grew in prominence, so did the complexity of its operations. New opportunities arose, but so did new challenges. One of the most pressing issues was ensuring that the foundation's programs remained personal and impactful, even as they expanded. "We can't lose sight of why we started this," Lily said during a team meeting. "If we start treating people like numbers, we're no better than a corporation." Her words resonated deeply, and the team began brainstorming ways to maintain the foundation's core values. They decided to implement a story-sharing initiative, encouraging beneficiaries and mentors to share their experiences with the foundation. These stories would be documented and celebrated, ensuring that the human element remained at the heart of their work. A heartfelt reunion. One of the most memorable moments for the Reeves family came during a reunion event hosted at the community center. It was an opportunity for past beneficiaries, mentors, and volunteers to reconnect and celebrate their collective achievements. As Sam mingled with the crowd, he was approached by a young woman holding a baby. Her face lit up as she recognized him. "Mr. Reeves," she exclaimed, "I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Sarah. You helped me get a scholarship to nursing school." Sam's eyes widened with recognition. "Of course, I remember you, Sarah. It's so good to see you. How have you been?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she explained how the scholarship had allowed her to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. Now she was working in a pediatric hospital and raising a family of her own. "This is Emma," she said, gesturing to the baby in her arms. "I named her after your wife." Sam was speechless. Tears welled up in his eyes as he reached out to hold the baby's tiny hand. In that moment, he felt the full weight of his impact, not just on Sarah's life, but on future generations. The next generation. As Jake and Lily continued to grow into their roles within the foundation, they began envisioning ways to engage younger generations. They launched a youth leadership program, inviting high school and college students to participate in service projects and learn about the principles of philanthropy. One of the standout participants was a 16-year-old girl named Tasha, who had been a mentee in the Foundation's program. Tasha quickly emerged as a natural leader, organizing fundraisers and inspiring her peers with her passion for giving back. "Tasha reminds me of you," Sam said to Lily one evening after a particularly successful event. "She has the same fire, the same drive to make a difference." Lily smiled. "She's amazing, isn't she? I can't wait to see what she accomplishes." Reflection and gratitude. As the Foundation celebrated its 5th anniversary, the family took a moment to reflect on their journey. They gathered in the living room, flipping through photo albums filled with snapshots of events, programs, and the countless lives they had touched. "Do you remember how all of this started?" Jake asked, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "It was that photo of you, Dad, at the gala. We had no idea who you really were back then." Sam chuckled. "And now you know too much." "But seriously," Lily interjected, "look at what we've built together. It's not just about the programs or the funding. It's about the people, the relationships, the hope we've created." Sam nodded, his heart full. "And it's all because of you too. Your mom would be so proud of the way you've carried her dream forward, the legacy that lives on." The Reeves Family Foundation had become more than a philanthropic organization. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of kindness and resilience. Through their work, the Reeves family had not only transformed their community, but had also inspired others to take action in their own lives. As they looked to the future, they knew their journey was far from over. Challenges would come, but so would opportunities to create even greater impact. And as they continued to walk this path together, they carried with them the knowledge that even the smallest acts of kindness could change the world. Because in the end, their legacy wasn't about the money they had given or the programs they had built. It was about the lives they had touched, the hope they had sparked, and the love they had shared, a legacy that would live on for generations to come.